Welcome to the first episode of Game Music Alchemy, where we analyze game soundtracks, look at what they achieve and how they are written. All my transcriptions shown in this video are available in various formats on my Patreon page. Today we take a look at my favorite point-and-click adventure series of all time, Syberia. Syberia, a game series full of mysteries, lovable protagonists, clever puzzles and an emotional story. While the other titles are composed by Inon Zur, also known for Fallout 3 and 4 and Dragon Age 2, the first one is scored by Dmitry Burdyansky and Nicolas Vallet. Sorry for wrong pronunciations. Nicolas has also worked on Amazon, The Explorer's Legacy and Paradise, both written and designed by Benoit Soukal, the creator of the Syberia series. Dimitri was the voice director for Amazon and worked as a sound designer together with Nicolas on Still Life, another game by the same developer Microids. For this video I chose one soundtrack for each game. The first one is the Valadilène theme. Valadilène is the first place where you start your journey. Right at the beginning we can see that this piece is written in C Dorian, a mode which is often used to picture a magical world or an adventure like the Elder Scrolls series, for example. The Dorian mode is defined by the major sixth in a natural minor scale, so instead of an A flat we have an A, and so our subdominant chord is an F major instead of an F minor. Let's have a listen how the theme would sound if it has been written in natural minor instead. Doesn't sound that adventurous anymore, right? The motive is introduced by a string section. In the repetition, the woodwinds join the party and the motive gets more and more rhythmically vague until the atmosphere is shattered by a timpani hit and a viola line. That's the only part I honestly didn't really like about this piece, because in my opinion, while it works quite well as a musical piece of its own, it doesn't feel right as a game soundtrack, because every time I expected something to happen on the screen, but there wasn't. It continues with the strings repeating the theme again, now with a clear 3/4 rhythm. I like how it provides its melancholy by using the cello as the lead instrument, while the woodwinds and the overall movement establish a more adventurous vibe. And that fits perfectly in the world of Syberia. With all its magic moments and fascination for the four Alberg automatons, the melancholy is constantly there, whether it's the steampunk art design or the story of the old man with a childish dream to find the last living mammoths. Now we come to the B part. B for building up tension. This is accomplished by an uprising sequence in harmonic minor, by using the major seventh in a natural minor scale. It's switching back and forth between the dominant seventh and the tonic chord, followed by a sequence of diminished and augmented chords, which build up the tension even more, so that the G major at the end feels almost like a resolution, despite being the dominant of our C minor scale. After repeating the theme again, now with the woodwinds as the lead instrument spiced up with a counter melody, we have another viola line. Finally, the brass section gets the spotlight before the piece leads to the end with the strings repeating the theme for a last time. I think that's a beautiful example on how to develop a small theme by simply arranging it for each individual orchestra section. I also want to point out that each section gets its own space in the arrangement. When writing with a MIDI orchestra, this is something a lot of people get wrong. In real life, the flutes, for example, can't compete in loudness with a complete string ensemble. However, in your DAW, you only need to raise the volume knob of the flutes. This results in an unrealistic orchestra sound. Let's compare the following two versions of a MIDI orchestral track and you will notice the difference. Let's move to Syberia 2's main theme. Kate and Hans are venturing through Russia, and after the intro, the overall Russian sound clearly stands out. This is accomplished by using an oboe as the lead instrument, and if you listen closely, you can hear a balalaika in the background. After the theme is played, the clarinet takes over the lead voice, joined by the violin with a countermelody. To increase the Eastern European feel, we also hear a tambourine playing on the offbeats, which leads to a more polka-ish sound. After the B part, we come back to A, but now modulated to the subdominant key, D minor. The whole orchestra kicks in and garnished with small counter melodies in the brass here and there, we come to the end of part 2. Syberia 3. A well-written story, great soundtrack, absolutely garbage voice acting, aside from French I guess, and a lot of technical issues. But while the quality of the game took 2 steps back, the soundtrack developed further. Instead of the official main theme, this time I want to focus on Kate's theme. The track begins with a 2-bar intro in D minor. In the background you can hear a high piano sound arpeggiating the chords with some passing notes. This piano line will carry on the entire first segment and is adding more movement to the piece. After the intro, we are introduced to the theme by the beautiful voice of Arely Brighton, also known for her work on Ori and the Blind Forest. Vocals and scores are often used to enhance the focus on a specific person or to express more humanity in a piece. Regarding this is the theme for the main protagonist, this choice suits the purpose perfectly. The theme is repeated by adding more voices and lyrics to the arrangement. Enon Shure evolves the theme further by adding a nice twist in the next repetition. The A minor becomes an F major and the B flat major becomes a G major. For a brief moment, we get the magical adventurous vibe from Dorian again, if you remember. And to make really sure that we don't get bored after hearing the repetition over and over, He breaks the 6 bar after 6 bar structure by adding an additional bar before coming home to D minor. The next method Inonshu uses to spice up the next repetition is by modulating to the subdominant G minor, followed by changing the second chord that would actually be a C minor 6 to F major. We have arrived at the end of the 4th repetition and finally going in a 4-bar interlude. This part is quite interesting. The chords are built upon an ascending G minor scale, and again we have the Dorian flavor by raising the 6th to E. I like how the high angelic voices are leading to an almost spiritual feeling. The magic here has its climax at the beginning of the next bar, where we arrive in B flat major. But all the shining hopefulness here doesn't last for long. The piece doesn't want you to embrace the positivity, so it breaks the optimism by ending the phrase on a D minor. It then hints to another hopeful moment, until it concludes in a bittersweet G minor, where we listen to the motive for the last time. To summarize, we have 4 methods Inon has used here to contain the tension without changing the melody: adding voices, changing the lead instrument, reharmonization, and modulation. Syberia, The World Before, is the latest entry in the series. And thank God it's not a disaster as the last one. In fact, it's the best adventure game I've played in years, but it does a few things different than its predecessors. The first 2 games in particular are first and foremost about the journey and visiting new extraordinary places, whereas The World Before is more about the characters, the past and their emotions. And if you look at the song list of the soundtrack, you'll see we have 5 character themes now, instead of only a single one. The most important character of the story, I think, is Dana Rose, and this is her theme. The World Before is scored in a very classical way. In the intro we have an arpeggiated D minor B6 chord, which has an open and spacious feeling. Then the theme is played by a viola. But why does it sound so romantic and almost cheesy sometimes? The answer is appoggiaturas. If you want a more detailed explanation about this topic, I highly recommend watching the video Rosalina is a Disney Princess by 8-Bit Music Theory. Another technique for creating romantic melodies is the usage of chromatic passing notes like here and there. At the end of part 1, we have a chord progression that delays the resolution by 2 entire bars, so the A7 feels truly relieving when it comes. Now the cheesiness gets to a new level by modulating from D minor to D major. Notice how the harmonies are mostly moving chromatically. The pizzicato strings in the high-pitched piano add an enchanting sweetness to the sound. In contrast to that, the second half of this part consists of a dramatic uprising sequence. And then another modulated variation of the theme, back in minor, but now transposed upwards by a whole step. This is a common and absolutely cheesy method to increase the intensity and is mostly used in pop music. The movement of the arrangement has increased as well by using string legato arpeggios, a technique only really feasible by a live orchestra. Everyone who has tried achieving this kind of movement with VSDs knows what I'm talking about. The attack is usually too slow, which means they need more time to produce a full and rich sound. While there are workarounds, most composers simply avoid this technique when they don't have access to a live orchestra. An untreated string arpeggio sounds like this. And now the live version. Dana's theme comes to an end with a dark tone, and we are left in a tragic mood. Enon manages perfectly to tell us the story of life with all its twists and turns, while keeping the identity by sticking to only one motive. I hope you enjoyed my first episode of Game Music Alchemy and maybe learned something as well. Feel free to comment on something you missed or would like to see in another video. Stay tuned and bye bye.